really clear what's there this year. We'll go through a timeline, process, schedule, so you know what to expect. We'll make sure you guys have time to ask questions, and then we'll tell you about some resources. All right, next. So this will be the background. So why do we do this? And it's not to torture you, even though that's maybe we really do this for a bunch of different reasons. What the information that we collect from you and the criteria that are set are really important, because HUD, the criteria we ask you to give us information on, is the same criteria that HUD asks our whole COC to put together. So you may know the system performance measures, your data feed that. In addition to that, HUD requires us to rank projects every year, and we need an objective way to do that. So that's another reason we do it. We need to make sure that everyone's doing a good job and can continue to get funded. We also just want to make sure, it's really been a principle of BOS from the very beginning, to always do better. And I always say this, the Connecticut providers feel the same way, and you guys do, you do your own CQI. And so it's just to keep providing the highest quality housing and services to the folks that you guys serve. So this helps us measure how things are going, where things are going really well, and where there are areas for improvement. Okay.
Liz, somebody said they're having trouble hearing, so I don't, if there's, I can hear you okay, but maybe just be conscious of wherever your microphone is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, let me know if anybody else can't hear, let me know.
Yeah, I'm not.
Holler if anybody else can't hear me.
Okay.
I'm usually very loud. Usually I'm asked to take it down a notch. So I'll just be even louder. So roles and responsibilities. What does everybody need to do to make this happen? So many of you know that the steering committee works really hard, and providers and other stakeholders come together and provide great input, so that every year what we are evaluating, I think, gets better and better, and we get much better data every year. CCH works really hard. We work very closely with them to get the data, to get your APR data. They provide reports, they give us the by name list, and they are really, really important partners in this process. Of course, you guys are the superstars, right? Because you provide all the data. You guys provide access so that we can find out what's going on. You give us information in the project, in the agency information form, so that if there's ever a NOFA, we can answer NOFA questions. So you guys are the superstars in this. And housing innovations, we manage this process, chase you for information. We analyze the data, and then we produce the reports. Okay. So some fun facts about BOS. We have about 140 projects now, which is really a lot because there have been a lot of mergers too. So we probably even had more projects, but folks have come together for efficiency, which is really great. I already mentioned this. This is Shannon's favorite thing to remind our providers, though, that all the data that we collect from you, again, goes into the system performance measures. So every time you clean your data and every time you provide more accurate data and can show off all the people that you're getting housed and the increases in income, increase in benefits, we get to brag to HUD about how great our COC is doing. And that's really, really important for lots of reasons, right? For the obvious reasons that you're providing great services and housing to folks, but also our funding is contingent upon how well we do in those areas. And lots of you on the phone have been around for 10 years or more. Every year this evolves. I think it's a better process every year because we get feedback from folks. And so I think it's a great process. And again, because we have such great partners. Okay. And I mentioned this before, but so for YHDP folks, this is their first year. Welcome aboard. We're excited to have you. We're excited to hear what's going on in your programs. But they will not be evaluated for a score. We will be collecting baseline information for those project types. And then we'll take a look at the baseline information and that will help us set the scoring criteria for next year, and how to set the metrics up. Okay.
And I'm gonna take over for a little bit here. We have linked here that in this icon here, renewal evaluation criteria icon, is the criteria for this year that the steering committee approved. And we're going to walk through that criteria item by item, and we organize them the way they are in the scoring criteria form, which is on the CT BOS website on the renewal evaluation tab. So most of the information that we score projects on is from APR data. So another plug to get that as accurate as possible so that you'll be scored on your actual performance. I'm seeing Amanda, what about SSO, YHDP projects? They are not being evaluated, right, Liz, this year? Right, no, excuse me. SSOs are a complete, supported services only projects are a completely different kind of animal, right? Like the transitional housing, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing. HUD has given guidance on what they would like to see with that. The system performance measures give us guidance on what they like to see in terms of performance of that. Supported services only are different, and they're going to take some more time to develop criteria to evaluate those projects on, so not this year. So the reporting period for the APRs every project obviously has a different schedule. Like some start January 1, many start in June or in July 1. So in order to be consistent and in order to match up with the system performance period, reporting period, we just decided to do 10/1. So for this year, it'll be 10/1/2019 to September 30th, 2020. And new this year, providers will run you will run your own APRs, review the data, and hopefully many of you were able to take advantage of CCH's boot camp yesterday on APRs. If not, there's a link to, they recorded that boot camp and it's going to be posted to their website. So you run it, you review that data yourselves before the 10/26 deadline, which is the deadline to submit help desk tickets if you recognize that there are issues with your APR for any data issues. And that way, when we do the first round of reports, they'll be as accurate as possible. And again, there are links here on how to run a Word document, how to run and how to read your APR. Common pitfalls with APR data are incomplete data, including missing annual assessments. So those are the assessments that when somebody is in your project for 1 year or more need to be completed. There's a certain range, I believe it's 30 days before or after their enrollment, that annual assessment needs to be completed. I'm hearing some background noise. I'm just going to remind everyone to mute if you're not speaking. So annual assessments not complete is a common pitfall. And that's, if your annual assessment is not complete, then your income for your participants is not going to be correct. So that's important, very important for that metric. Reviewing and correcting data for the wrong time period. So remember that 10/1 to 9/30 is the correct time period. Look at the number of people in your program, and then your APR will show you a quarterly report of how many people. Just a quick check. Yes, everybody was enrolled. Did we exit that person at the right time? That type of a thing. Incorrect prior destinations. So remember the criteria for most, if not all of these programs, with a little twist on DV, but is homelessness. So people have to be entering the projects from homelessness, and that will affect your eligibility criteria. So look at that information as well. And then starting the data review process late is another common pitfall. So just encourage you to start now, looking pulling that APR and looking at all your data right now. So performance, again, when I talk about APRs, this is the APR that's in the HMIS system. I know there are probably some DV providers on here. So when we are listing the questions that the metric corresponds to, it might be slightly different on an APR from a comparable database, from that DV database. So just keep that in mind if you're a DV provider. So what we look at, efficient use of resources. If your project is a project that's over $2 million, it must spend at least 95% and leave less than $75,000 unspent. Projects under $100,000 must spend at least 90% of the funding. All projects must spend at least 95% with the exception of that 100,000 limit, and leave less than $50,000 unspent. So the data source for these metrics is your SAGE spending data from the most recently submitted APR to HUD. So for this one metric, the evaluation period is your project operating year, your normal year where you report to HUD on the data, as opposed to the 10/1 to 9/30 year. Eligibility. Again, at least one adult participant per household must have been homeless formerly. And for PSH, in addition to that homeless, there's at least one participant has to have a qualifying disability or disabling condition. And those, you see there's an asterisk here for the first one, APR question 15 at the bottom, and for this, the disability APR question 13A2. Participant income and resources. Non-youth, the percent of adult participants who increase earned income from entry to exit or follow-up. So this is looking at, from the time the person entered your program, have they gained income? So if they have come to that reporting period where it's time for them to have an annual assessment, it's going to look from entry to the most recent annual assessment and say, did they increase their income? Or if they have exited your program, it's going to look from entry to the time they exit, and that's going to look at that exit assessment. So exit assessments are important as well, and for them to be as accurate as possible is important as well. The benchmarks for scoring this metric are for PSH and our rapid rehousing. 25% of the participants met that metric, increased their earned income. For transitional housing, 40% of the people increase their earned income. So if you reach that benchmark, then you get full points for that particular scoring item. Then the youth, percent of adult participants who increase earned income from entry to exit or follow-up, leavers and stayers. For all housing components, 20% is the benchmark for that. Percent of adult participants who increase other income from exit to entry or follow-up. Benchmarks, so other income would be your benefits, your Social Security, or your SSI. PSH, 45%, rapid rehousing, 25%, and transitional housing, 35%. If participant has exit the APR, we'll look at the exit assessment again, as I said. If not, it'll look at the annual assessment. And all these questions are APR report question 19. Participant income, all adult participants with non-cash benefits, including health insurance, the benchmark is 95% for that. And all participants with health insurance, the benchmark is 95% as well. And you can see the corresponding questions below in the data source. Length of stay. HUD has put a lot of focus on length of stay in the past several years. So we look at this metric. For permanent supportive and for rapid rehousing, we get a report from CCEH that we look at the data from the point in time where the person was matched to housing to the point in time where they're actually in the house. So the move-in date it is in HMIS. So for PSH and For PSH, we want 85%, the metric is 85% people are housed within 30 days. And for rapid rehousing, 50% of the people were housed within 30 days. Then we look at, for transitional housing, we look at the time that people are actually in the projects. So for non-YHDP transitional housing and non-DV, 90% is the benchmark. And for 1 year or less, that people are in the program 1 year or less. For non-YHDP transitional housing, DV programs, 100% is the benchmark for 2 years or less. And for YHDP transitional housing, 60 days or less is the benchmark we're going to look at. But again, YHDP is not being scored this year. We're collecting data for informational purposes and to give us a guideline on where might be best to set the benchmark for next year, for future years. So again, CCH report for that top metric, and then APR question 22A1 for the rest of them. Housing stability, we're looking at exits from your program. Are people either staying in your program or staying in your program, or are they, if they are exiting to homelessness, or are they exiting to permanent housing destinations, which is the ideal. So for rapid rehousing and transitional housing, 95% is the benchmark of leavers to exit to permanent housing. And for all projects, the benchmark is 5% or less than 5% exit to homelessness. The APR question is 23C for that. Compliance. So this is looking at all of your APR data and looking to see that it's complete, and looking to see that questions haven't been skipped. So there's a report, see data source APR question 6A, B, and C looks at all kinds of, like, the social security number, date of birth, race, ethnicity, all those questions. Are they completed for your clients, or are they missing for your clients? So we look for universal data elements error rate of 5% or less for at least 13 of those core data elements. Consumer surveys. So consumer surveys can be completed 2 different ways. We have paper surveys, and there are links to those on the CT BOS website. Or we've, with the email, the launch email that went out earlier this week, there's a link to SurveyMonkey surveys for every single project. So SurveyMonkey is the preferred way. That's the easiest way for us to get the information, but the paper is available too if that's more convenient for you. Versions of English surveys are available in electronic and versions of English surveys are available on the paper and electronic form. Spanish survey is available in paper form and by request electronically via SurveyMonkey. So you need to ask specifically if you want a Spanish SurveyMonkey survey. If agencies participate in the DEMAS consumer survey process, those agencies can submit the DEMAS survey in lieu of CT BOS consumer surveys. But the date range for that is 11/7/19 to 11/9/20. So for YHDP consumer surveys, YHDP projects have already been sent out, I believe, by DOH, links to special surveys for YHDP projects, links to SurveyMonkey surveys for those projects. We also, in the launch email, attached a document with those links as a reminder for everybody. And we just ask that YHDP projects also follow that process and complete the surveys by November 9th to be included in this process. So what we're looking at for consumer surveys is you get a maximum points for responses if you have at least 35% of your clients respond. You don't get more points if you have 50% or 80% of your people respond. So if you know you have at least 35% of your people responding, it's okay to go ahead and submit those. Consumer surveys received December 1st or after will not be considered for the evaluation. And just what a caution, that's a big point loss. So not only will you not get any of the points that are available for consumer surveys, but there's also a 10-point late penalty if they're received after 11/9 or they're not received at all. So I think the full point loss, I think it's 20 points if you don't submit the consumer surveys. So there's a bunch of—
It's 15-point loss.
Oh, thanks, Miles. It's 15-point loss. Then there's a bunch of items that we are looking at, but we are not scoring. And some of this is because people have performed so well. We still want to keep an eye on it and make sure that people are doing well in it, but we decided to drop that from the scoring criteria right now. So we look at occupancy. We want all projects to be as full as possible. We're being given this money by HUD, and we want to be able to use it to house as many as people as possible. So we look at occupancy. We look at the by name list process that the CANs use, and we want to know that projects are using those by name lists and that they're entering people through the CAN process, through the by name list process. For you, again, all of the youth information is being collected but not scored. So youth and non-youth, adult participants who have earned income at exit and follow-up, that's we're looking at. YHDP rapid rehousing, length of stay for participants is 9 months or less. So that's a goal, but we're just looking at it this year. We're not scoring it. Cost effectiveness, we are looking at supportive service dollars and the cost per household served. There's been a lot of talk nationally about what might be ideal for that. So we're trying to gauge what's best for our projects and how we might best guide that funding. And then for transitional and rapid rehousing projects, we're looking at the cost per permanent, the full cost per permanent housing exit. So the data sources are listed here. Some of it's SAGE spending and APR reports.
So Shannon, should we stop and, because we have a couple questions.
Yes.
We can answer what's in the chat box. People can put some more in the chat box. And when we're done with these, if people want to unmute, if they'd rather ask live. So Miles, do you want to talk about income, how the income increases are measured?
There was a question before, but then I'll do that one. On the consumer surveys, it's 35% based on your grant application units. So if your units are 10, we base it on 10. So if you have 5 people submit, you have 10 units, you get 50%. I saw the question pop up a few seconds ago. For the increased income for earned or other income, it's based on chart 19, and it's based on people what they came into the program and what they're at the either exit or annual assessment at this time. So they came in the program with $100 and now they get $500 a month. You have an increased income. That's a positive thing. I think that I answered that question.
Yeah, it's from the entry assessment, not from the prior assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you've got clients there in the long term, usually the income does go up. So
right.
Short-term participants, you might have more problems.
Great. Also, great question. So yes, the DEMIS surveys, so we're not asking you. So if you have DEMIS surveys, you don't also need to do BOS surveys. So everybody remember that because it'll save you some time. If you do the DEMIS surveys, you need to, so if you have paper surveys, we have instructions in the launch email how to send those, to send them to us in one batch. And then I think Kim is asking if they're in DDAP, you need to enter them, do you need to send them to us? They do need to come to us. But you're not entering them in the Survey Monkey because the questions are not all the same. Anything else? Do people have
Other
other
question?
questions?
Hi, this is Annie. I have a question. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
I was just curious about, so I know you guys don't, like we weren't scored the first year because it was our first year of the project. So this is our first year getting scored.
Yep.
But although this is our second year, we're actually sending you data that was our first year data. So I'm just curious how, right? Like, I'm just curious about like how much do you give any leeway, right? If you're looking at our first year data. So our project didn't start until September of 2019. So you're actually looking at our first year's worth of data. So like we weren't at full capacity for a while because it took us a while to ramp up. So when I think of 35% of surveys or even just the occupancy question, we're getting there now because we're now in our second year, but you're looking at our first year data for all of this.
Well, okay, there's two things. One is in the criteria, we don't score spending and occupancy on the first year. So the first year projects get an A on those, so they don't count. Two, because of your first year, all your clients are new, and practically all your clients don't have annual reviews. So you're not going to be scored on anything that has
Right.
annual reviews. That's health insurance, earned income, other income. So all those questions go away. The only things you get scored on, obviously, you get scored on consumer surveys, but there might be
Eligibility.
a caveat on that. If your project doesn't really have anybody, you might submit something saying, look, right now we have only 4 clients out of 10 units because whatever situation, it might be a rapid house, and we don't have anyone to really submit. One person is refusing, we won't make the match. So if there's unusual circumstance, you can submit that in, but ordinarily, you should be able to get the 35% on the consumer surveys. And the other questions are pretty much on, let me see, like exits. If you have no exits, you're not going to be scored on it. If you do have an exit, hopefully it's a good exit. If it's only one exit and it's a bad exit, you won't get scored on that either.
So yes,
Maybe on
allowance
most
instead of-
cases you might not be scored at all, and they might not have a score, or in some cases you might have a few scores, and that will be the result. So trying to think of what the scores that you would get is entry, housing eligibility, and disability eligibility, depending if you're not if you're a PSH project. If you have the disability stuff, which everyone should have, because that's, and also the housing eligibility, you'll get the full points. So you should get 10 or 20, depending if you're PSH or wrap-rate housing. And I'm trying to think of any other questions that are off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
All right. Oh, that's good. Thanks,
And the
Miles. Hey,
consumer
Miles, let me-
surveys, and
Miles,
then
let
the
me ask-
HMIS. So those standards you should be able to hit, and you should get 100 points on the most part. My consumer surveys, there's a little fluctuation, so there's always going to be not a perfect score on most cases, because people have opinions, but it should get you closer to 100 points, because the answers you have, they're automatic requirements. I mean, you're not supposed to bring a client into the program if not eligible. So, and you would have lost points there. But
Right.
if you brought clients that were eligible, you would not get all your points. And,
Thanks, Miles. I think that's
And
helpful. Yeah.
everyone can sense Miles' passion for renewal
Yeah.
evaluation, which we really appreciate, because someone has to feel this passionate about it. But Miles, thank you so much. We'll holler if we have some more. And then wait, let me do another question. Is occupancy rate being evaluated this year? So occupancy, we will collect the data because we want to know what's happening, but you will not be scored this year. So occupancy does not have any points associated with it. Also,
and it's not affected by corrective action either.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Thanks, Miles. And then someone also asked, is it okay? I mean, people shouldn't lose points if you move from one PSH project to another PSH project. So that's fine with eligibility. I believe we have a way of catching that in our evaluation, but as always, if somehow we said that you were serving someone ineligible, you're going to reach out to us. And actually, I'm going to talk about that process.
Transfers from PSH is already counted as you're eligible, so I don't, that's already accounted for.
Yeah, so that shouldn't be a problem.
There's a bucket that says PSH, and I already exclude that as not being eligible.
Perfect. So Miles
That's
is
already
on
counted.
it. Great. Excellent. All right, I'm going to move ahead. I think this is the most important slide. So stop shopping on Amazon or doing Sudoku or anything. Everybody just listen to this 30 seconds and then you can go back. So we have a new database, Zengen, and providers have to enroll in this. You cannot participate in the renewal evaluation process unless you are part of Zengen. We've done 2 trainings, and if you haven't had a chance to do that, to do the trainings, we either have or we will post the recording on our website. We're going to send an email out either today or tomorrow reminding everyone, but you must be part of Zengen. And our concern is that on November 8th, we're going to get 200 phone calls of people who want to know what Zengen is and how can they submit their document. So we don't want you guys to panic. We don't want to field that many panic phone calls. We want everyone to be happy and know how to submit stuff. There's a link to the training. Oh, no, we didn't. We don't
No,
have
I'm
it.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It'll be on the website
go to our
later
website
today.
and Shannon put up all these great resources. After you go through the resources, if you're still confused or you need some help, we're always here. So that's my Zengen plug. If you walk away from with one fact from today, it's that you must be part of Zengen. You have to join the database. It's not hard. Even I could do it. I was one of the first people in, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. And okay, that was my plug. Also, we have a spreadsheet so that you know what, I'm sorry, that's for merge grants. You're going to look at the spreadsheet so that you know what grant number to submit under, because we know we have a bunch of merge grants. So check that out if you have a merged grant, and hop in Zengen as soon as you can.
I just want to pause for a couple more questions here.
Oh, perfect.
What is a common mistake when clients are, I lost it. What's the common mistake when clients are transferred from one PSH to another one? I don't think in terms of this process, there is a common mistake. I think for your regular program purposes, you need to keep documentation and make sure that they were eligible when they entered the first PSH. But I can't think of, Liz or Miles, any other common mistake.
No, the only thing I was thinking was that in the APR, folks are choosing that they're coming from permanent housing instead of choosing, do they have the choice of choosing PSH maybe? I couldn't remember either. I was trying to think of that too. So yeah. Miles says that he catches it in the system, so it should not be a problem.
Well, right. For us, if you put it under, they came from a PSH project, which is, I don't remember what, yeah. There's a thing for PSH in the other sections in the back, the third table, I think, fourth table, down. Yeah, if you click that'd be fine.
Okay. And I just think if for some reason. But
for your documentation for project monitoring, you have to keep all the documentation that they were homeless and and all that other stuff and there was also a transfer. But I'm going to pull up the APR just to.
All right, Miles, while you're looking, we're going to keep answering a couple of questions.
Yeah. So Radhika says we've already collected some DEMIS surveys without adding grant numbers. Do we need to collect surveys again?
No. Basically, just mark the survey with the grant number or the first survey or a cover sheet saying these are all the surveys for this batch, and we'll be fine. You don't have to write on each and every one. But as long as you keep the batches separate, that'll be fine. If you batched all the different projects together, we will have a mess, and I be taking the best guess where it goes, or in most cases, I just send it back to you and make you clean it up. But yeah.
Could I ask a question? Or
of course.
am I live?
Yeah.
We used to do this via email, and there was a labeling or naming of the particular document. Do you want us to use the same format when we label or the document that we're downloading? Or
Well,
I mean, you have
you don't have to
going.
do exact same method because you're throwing it in the bucket. So, yeah. But it would be good that, you know, you write I guess the grant number and say it's consumer surveys or the grant number and some other document. You know, so we, you know, all the PDFs don't look, you know, like what is this versus that.
Right.
Yeah. Other than that,
what we're sending.
Too crazy with the naming convention, I guess.
Okay. I'll put the 4-digit, you know, grant number plus the name of the document plus the agency and the program. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, that'll be sufficient.
Okay.
Great. So folks are asking, how do you confirm the HMIS IDs? We're actually not doing that through ZenGen. Good question. We may in the future, but for this year, so we call it the launch email. It's the email that we sent out on October 13th. That is, we know, very, very long, and we're sorry about that. But that should have all the information for renewal evaluation for you in one place. There is a link to the document so that you can check out your HMIS IDs, and then you're actually just going to shoot a note to CT BOS email only if there's a problem. So if we don't hear from you, we're going to assume you reviewed it and you're all set with your HMIS ID. What else? So Miles, Kathleen said that there is no PSH to PSH.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, so there is a other location. It's called permanent housing other than wrap housing for formerly homeless persons.
Okay.
So that's the category for the PSH to PSH transfer.
Okay.
It wasn't really called PSH, but
got it.
You know, it's permanent housing other than wrap housing for formerly homeless persons. For projects that are transferring, rent. If you have a client that's rental by client with other housing subsidy, including wrap housing, was a transfer from that. Those will need additional information from, because I don't know if that's a transfer from one of these, you know, wrap housing projects or something else, which gets a little fuzzy, you know. But the other one, the permanent housing one, I have no problem with. If you put in that bucket, that's good to go.
There's a question here about a client who refuses to sign an HMIS release, and so their data is not an HMIS, and so therefore they won't be on an APR. So I'm just going to go as this. I'm going to say this caveat, like double check with CCH with what I'm telling you, but my understanding is that when the HMIS, collecting HMIS data is like when we all go to a doctor's office. Our doctor's office doesn't need permission to collect our information. They need permission from us if they're going to share that information. So as long as your project isn't sharing the information, it's just collecting it in HMIS, it's still okay to enter, but I'm going to tell you to double check with CCH that there's not some specific policy to CT BOS that would go against that. So I would think that you could still enter that data, but double check on that.
And Shannon, this is Lee. There's also protocols to be able to enter a client into HMIS anonymously, so we can.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So check that out. Thank you. Thanks, Lee, for saying that. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for raising that too, because if other people are up against this, that sounds like it can be addressed a couple different ways, maybe. Yeah, I know, Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry, it's probably harder in chat, but given that the surveys are digital, is there a way we can get updates as how many have come in? Because we have no idea if clients are doing them or not. Again, given pandemic, we're blasting out the emails, the links, but we have no idea until the deadline if we're going to be dinged on a percentage. So is there a way to track and get updates periodically?
Miles,
we're pausing because
You have to ask me.
Oh, wait, so this is Katie. Katie's actually answering this one because Tim's asking, he may be asking for a YHDP project, so that's a
Oh,
DOH
okay.
survey.
Well, I'm asking for all because we have YHDP and
Okay,
COC
so
rapid.
Katie can give you an update, I think is the answer. And then for Miles,
He can give you an
check in with
update.
him, he'll tell you. But we don't have a way of doing that for, 140 projects. So,
No,
if
I get it,
you know, if you need
Yeah.
to know that.
You have to
check
ask,
in with
like, send me an email when you want it. I have to look manually
Right.
and check to see how many is in the system. It's the only way I could do that. It's not like I can run a report and says, I have these projects have this and that. Unfortunately, I have to look at the project and say, oh, there's 5 in there. Then I look for the next one.
Right.
So it's not that conducive.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move us on. Yeah, I let Kim's question, which I wish I could answer. If we know when the NOFA will be out, what we're doing with renewal evaluations.
Ask
With
the
you.
question.
Every day we wake up hoping for an email with an explanation, Kim. I mean, the good news is that HUD has indicated thus far, we know they change their mind sometimes, that whatever the process is, it will be a simple one. We don't know. I wish they would wave their magic wand and we wouldn't have to do anything. We don't really know what will happen, but literally the day we find out, we will shoot an email out to you all. We'll come up with a process and hopefully it'll be a painless one. So yeah, I know. No hurry unless it comes out, the week before Thanksgiving or something. Great. So this is important too. What are we evaluating in 2021? You're going to be really sad if you pull all your information together and you're actually not being evaluated. So just check the list. Some brand new projects aren't being evaluated, others. So check here and make sure you know what's being evaluated. We just talked about this. So you're going to make sure that your HMIS IDs are correct. So the reason this matters is because sometimes people have 2 HMIS IDs associated with a project. And if we don't have both of them there, we're missing part of your population. And so the data will not be correct. Yeah. Great. Next. Agency info forms. So this is really important. These aren't scored. We ask you to fill these out because, as you know, we are required in a normal year to do the HUD NOFA, to answer lots of questions. I like to say, to brag about all your good work and the great work that happens in Connecticut. It was really helpful for you to give us any information you have. Some of the questions you just might not be able to answer, or you don't serve that population. You can do it in bullet form. You can, whatever's easiest for you. We do not score these, but we do ask you to submit them, so that, again, we can collect information on the great stuff you're doing and translate that, when we submit the NOFA. Okay. So the score change process. So as you know, we always want you to have the ability to get your score changed. And the way we see it, we get the score change and we want to help you make it accurate and correct. But we really want to make sure the data are correct. And we want to make sure that you're able to put all your accurate, complete, and fantastic results in your APR. So there are lots of reasons why we keep cleaning the data, and we keep telling you that, or keep asking you to clean the data. So you're going to run your APRs now. Miles is going to produce a report. He's going to send that out to you in December. Then you're going to have the ability to say, hey, maybe something happened. No, this person, bridged from rapid rehousing to PSH. It's not an eligibility issue. Or you're going to say, oh my gosh, I have to clean that up in HMIS. So you're going to have the chance to do kind of what you're doing right now over again, and get another report from us. And just one exception here, it's not the time to say like, oh, these criteria don't work, or, oh, this isn't fair. It's really to work within the parameters that the criteria we do have, and to fix whatever might be going on. Okay. And then folks have also, some of you have participated in the grievance process. Even after going through the score change process, sometimes folks still have grievances, which is fine. And we welcome people to, come to us. Sometimes what happens with the grievance process, people raise issues that we hadn't thought of before. Sometimes in the past, we've had someone had a fire in a building. We've had all kinds of issues, and we do want to hear about them. So sometimes, usually in March, we do go through the grievance process. We have a grievance committee that meets and makes the final decisions. And then there's some things that you just can't grieve. I mentioned one of them, so standard criteria that we've already established. We can't grieve that. If you cleaned up your data after the deadlines, we can't do anything about that. And if you want to raise an issue, you have to raise it during the score change process first. We can't hear about it first at the grievance process because we try to clear up as much as we can before we hit the grievance process. And then just quickly going through, recapping what's happened and looking ahead. So folks have asked to be able to start the consumer surveys earlier. So we sent those out in June if people wanted to get moving on the paper surveys. In the summer, the steering committee adopted the criteria, and some of you on the call were part of that. So we talked about it during 2 different meetings. Folks brought it back to their cans, and there was really thoughtful, great conversation and feedback from providers on that. What's happening right now in October, we probably just have said it 10 times on the call already. Please, please look at your data, review. Now is the time to get your help desk tickets into Nutmeg. Going on. Get your consumer surveys out. It sounds like folks are, which is fantastic. Keep calling it the launch email. On the 13th, we sent out the launch email. If you didn't get it, 2 things. Definitely, again, Zengen. So once you get in Zengen, it connects your email to Constant Contact. So we'll be sending it, we'll probably be sending emails in different ways, but you got to make sure that you're in Zengen so that you're getting our emails. We did some Zengen training. We talked about that. And then another really important date is the 26th, and that's when help desk tickets are due. Shannon, I think it's in resources. Hopefully we have a link, because this year there is a specific way, we do in the end, okay. There's a specific way that you need to submit your help desk ticket. So that's really important. You're not submitting it the way you normally do, because Nutmeg wants to know that it's a renewal evaluation issue, because those are prioritized differently.
If it's not in a link at the end, it's on the renewal evaluation page on the CT BOS website.
Excellent. Great. And it's also in the launch email. I know that link's there too. So November 9th, another really important date. Data need to be finalized in HMIS. For the DV providers, we need your ETO reports. At that date, consumer surveys are due and agency info forms are due. You're going to get reports in December, and then in January, so remember we're doing this process again. So in January, you'll have to get more help desk tickets are due if you need to revisit your data and your score. We go through the score change process, and in March, we rescore and send revised reports, and then in April, you have the ability to grieve. Great. Questions? Shannon put the link to projects that'll be evaluated this year in the chat box.
And I'm putting the link to the help desk ticket guide in now.
Great. Yeah. So that's really important, and it's going to help out Nutmeg, and it's going to help you out because they will be able to triage your questions. Yes, so we will post this, the PowerPoint and the recording on the website so that folks can review again. I have to just get that off. Yeah. So these are resources. CCH, you're going to want to check out their website. They're working on it. So just keep checking that out. But, oh, good. Okay, so the help desk ticket portal's right there. There's a guide on how CCH and Nutmeg put together a help desk ticket guide. There's information on how to run an APR, how to read an APR, the annual assessment guide. So everything you'd ever want to know or probably not want to know about an APR is there. So check that out. All right. And then Zengen resources. Remember, your most important takeaway from today is that you're gonna go and create a Zengen account. You're gonna know that all your renewal evaluation stuff is going through Zengen, so you don't want it to be November 8th, and you don't know what Zengen is or how to get in. So please, please prioritize that. Check it out again. It's really not hard. And I think it will make our process so much smoother. As you guys know, in the past, we used to have you send things to Gmail and send attachments and things would get bounced back and you didn't know if it was received. And this is such a cleaner process that I think once you spend a few minutes getting on board, you too will embrace Zengen.
When I post these slides later, I'll link the video to the Zengen training here as well.
Great. And then this is us. We hope that you always know how to reach us, and we try to be reachable, and you can't get Miles, you can get Shannon, or you can get me. We want to make this really a painless process. Again, we know we have a bunch of new staff folks and YHDP folks, and we really appreciate you joining us. And you can pick up the phone and we'll talk through things with you. And we don't want you to be floundering or frustrated. And I think more than ever, we're doing such a great collaboration. I mean, we always have worked closely with Nutmeg and CCH, but they're providing this year even more tools, even more trainings, and they're really focused on making this a great process for you. And again, big goal that we have really good, clean data so we can show off all the great work you guys are doing. Do we have other questions, comments, concerns?
Hi, it's Florianne.
Hi, Florian.
Hi, Florian.
Could you run by me again, please, the increases for earned and non-earned income? That scenario of how they're rated, when they're rated, if they have, is it from the very beginning when they entered the program, or is it
Yes,
from
it's from
previous?
it's from
So-
when they enter the program
Okay, that's good. That's
to
good.
the most current completed assessment, whether that's an exit assessment or whether that's an annual assessment.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to be sure about that. And I will be having a couple of people that chose not to have food stamps. I talked about that with Shannon, right, yesterday?
Yes.
And because they have well enough income, or the single gentleman could only get $10. He says, I'm not going through all of that for $10.
Very
And
frustrating.
so the
Right.
question is, will there be a way for those two in particular, the family that has too much income, to want to deal with it, and the other one, will there be a way of not being penalized because they choose not to have food stamps?
So
Yeah.
if someone is over income, they're in the score change form, you have the ability to say this person is not eligible for.
So I don't know if she's not eligible, but she doesn't want them because she says other people need it more, and she has plenty of cash to do it herself.
Sure, sure. I mean, the hope is that other folks in the program are getting food stamps, and that there's an array of things that you're being scored on, so that hopefully that this will not negatively impact it. But it is one of the criteria, you know, folks say that also for increases in income, if folks choose to not work or choose not to apply for entitlements or benefits for whatever their reason is. But we do score all of these.
Well, the reason I'm asking in particular is because it's always been emphasized for anybody who is able to get off of a state benefit program because they've got another way to do it. And
Sure.
this means they're penalized if they do it.
Mhm.
So I hear you.
We talked about the process. So one item I think you're bringing up is this a fair assessment? So that the process of where we decide what is evaluated and how it's evaluated happens at the steering committee. So you can always talk to your CAN representatives that attend the steering committee meeting if you think a metric is not appropriate. But also, given your special circumstances, it may be that you would have a grievance for this particular item. So those are a couple of things that solutions that might work for you in terms of the food stamps item.
Well, I will do that. You gave me the information on who to contact, and I'll be doing that. So I just wanted to bring it up when we're all in a group together so that there can be some good feedback on how to handle it.
Yep. And what we will definitely do is take that back, because before you know it, we'll be starting to talk about renewal evaluation 2022. And so it sounds like that's an issue, probably not just for you, but for some other folks from what I'm seeing in the chat box. So
Yes.
we will make sure we note that. So in the score, the question is, how do you say that someone's not eligible, and can you use that someone lost SNAP due to fraud? Sure, yes. So in the score change form, I'm not remembering, maybe Miles remembers, and we change it up every year. We're going to make it more user-friendly this year too. We know that it's a little clunky in some spots, but you do have the ability to say this, usually people give us like an HMIS ID, isn't eligible because they are undocumented, they're over income, or this sounds like a special circumstance, lost it because of fraud. Kim is saying that she's having trouble linking with the Survey Monkey links. Miles, do you want to check that out? Are you here?
Yeah,
Okay.
I will.
Check out, so WRCC. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, concerns? Miles is going to make sure that the Survey Monkey links work.
I thought I copy and pasted right.
Oh,
But,
somebody else
maybe.
had trouble too. All right, we're going to check. We will check on the Survey Monkey links and make sure that they are working. We don't post them publicly, so I will send out if there are trouble or we have to clean up the links. Yeah, I will send out an email, and I will make sure folks know that it's the updated email that has updated and clean Survey Monkey links. It sounds like some folks have not had problems though, so we'll check it out and see what's going on. Right, anything else?
Liz, for the newbies, do you mind just very briefly going a little bit further into the rating and ranking, and how there's the first tier and then there's the second tier, and how often second tier gets renewed? Just sort of those basics, just so everybody knows the repercussions to the renewal eval.
Or look at Katie with scare tactics. No,
no, I don't mean repercussion. I just mean, you know what I'm saying.
I do, and I'm knocking on wood as I say that one of the BOS principles is that renewals get funded first. We never want to jeopardize programs. We don't want to jeopardize anyone's housing stability. So historically, things could change, but historically BOS has embraced doing anything and everything we have to make sure that renewals get funded.
There's always going to be a couple of renewals on the bottom in tier 2. Right. I mean, they're on top of tier 2, but they're in the bottom of the list. And they typically would be projects, I'm not going to say, always going to happen this way, but typically it'd be projects that are first-time renewals, and we usually put those down there because they're brand new projects, and usually they get funded anyway. It's just we have to put someone down there. And
not usually, always, Miles. Always, they've always been funded. I just don't.
There was a couple of years that was an exception. I think we put TH's first down below because you remember
funded.
Yeah, but that was a steering committee thing. But yeah, typically we put the first time renewals down. Yeah, because they were not even fully up and running and yet and everything else. So,
but historically, what's always gone below that, so ranked below, are the bonus projects. So when we ask for new money, we ask for new money after we ask for renewals to be funded. So there is a tier 1, there is a tier 2. I'm knocking on wood. again, our priority is to get all the renewals funded. We have historically gotten the renewals funded, and then we've been lucky enough also to get some bonus money. So they're funding even below that. But Katie's point is a good one, that this process does matter. You know, we do have to score and rank folks. And
Yeah.
so it is good to, yes, to keep that in mind. And I don't even think we have to say it out loud. Everyone tries very hard. Everyone wants a good score. You know, we like to say Connecticut with all the A+ students. So you guys recognize the importance, and then please recognize that we feel like it's always our job to make sure that your programs, you know, renewal programs are protected.
Yeah, and just to say, we're going to wrap up shortly in deference to respect to all your time, but if you're completely new to this process, HUD has asked us to rate and rank all the projects. So this is HUD has asked us to do this. So this scoring goes into how everybody is ranked in the NOFA, in the annual project renewal process, in the annual continuum of care competition. So, and a few years back, there was short, like 5-6 years back, there was a shortfall in money, and then they asked us to put a top tier and a bottom tier. And of course, the top tier, we were to say, is the higher priority than the lower tier. So that's how we're talking about tiers here. So we rank projects in the order that they score in this process. And that's why we try to be as thorough as possible, give people multiple chances to come back and say, whether they were scored correctly or not scored correctly, improve their data. But like Liz is saying, we have had the renewals approved every year, you're saying, Liz?
Yeah, all the renewals, we always got all our renewals, and we always got, gratefully, we always got a bonus project. So that means we got
when we asked for new
project that was ranked below the renewal.
Correct.
So we usually got a good comfort zone.
Yeah, and when Liz is saying when we ask for new money, that's what we put at the very bottom, because we want the projects that already exist, the money that's already in your hands and you're doing such good work with, we want that to continue on.
Anything else? So some SurveyMonkey links, Miles is gonna work on those. If other folks haven't checked their SurveyMonkey links, maybe make sure you do that and touch base with Miles if there are any problems. And if it sounds like we need to update that document, so we'll send that document back out to folks. Again, we don't post that on our website. Just that's the only document we don't. We just don't want folks futzing around with that necessarily. So we'll send it out through email.
Thank you all so much for your time. We appreciate you. Please, as Liz said, feel free to reach out to us at any time if you have further questions.